because we're going to be talking a little bit about social movements today, we thought we might start with introducing your first name, where you are today, the organisation or group that you belong to, and maybe one social movement that you care about. Marilyn, would you like to start? You have to unmute, please.
Yes, sorry, just getting a handle on the technology there. Kia ora, my name's Marilyn. I am here in Auckland, New Zealand. The organisation that I am part of at the moment, actually I work for a local council at the moment. I am a community developer at heart, and that's what I'm doing in council, just trying to bring ABCD to the institution. Sorry, what was the last thing?
Do you have a social movement that you care about?
I kind of care about a lot. I think movement is something that I'm really big on, is trying to find the energy and influence change and support the change. Right. I don't know if that.
Thanks, Marilyn.
That's great, Marilyn. Thank you. Who's next?
Marie?
I think it was Marie.
Oh, kia ora koutou. My name is Marie. I am also from New Zealand. I work for Neighbourhood, which is a regional sports trust, and my role is a community development officer. I guess my social movement that I care about is probably around parent education, and potentially play streets as well is another key thing that I'm kind of focused on. So yeah, I look forward to this session.
Thank you. And Karen.
Hello, Karen Newkirk, in Queenscliff, outside of Melbourne, on Wathaurong country in Australia, and I care about Indigenous Australian knowledge and non-Indigenous people learning to listen and learn.
Wonderful, thank you. Joanne.
Joanne? Me?
Yes, Joanne. Yes, Joanne Harland.
Kia ora. Joanne, I'm also in Tamaki Makaurau in Auckland, but originally from Australia. My superpower is to care. So I care about lots and lots of things. It drives my family crazy. At the moment, I care a lot about community-led development, because that's my little job, is working for SPICE, the Soundingham Project in Community Empowerment. And I've done that for the last 2 years. Before that, I was with the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Foundation, but in New Zealand. So I cared a lot about children, and I still care about food security and connections to food and children being able to cook. And before that, I was with Play Centre, which is an amazing parent-led early childhood service. I care a lot about parents being trusted to be the best educators for their own children and being empowered. So yeah, lots of stuff.
Wonderful, thanks, Joanne.
And neighbourhoods, which is why I'm at this session. Sorry, neighbourhoods.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. Andrew.
Okay, sorry, I've just got in. Yes, look, I'm ringing from Wollongong in Australia, and I belong to a group called SCARF, and we support the resettlement of refugees in the Illawarra area here. And my daughter told me all about this conference, and we're here to find out more about what goes on.
Wonderful, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Meryl, we're Hope. Would you like to introduce yourself? Hope, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Can
you hear me?
Yes.
Is that you, Hope?
Yes. So I'm from Canada. It's midnight here. So I'm in pajamas, but covered, so no worries. I care about environmental issues. Personally, I work for a neighborhood renewal organization, so I do community development stuff. So that's why I'm here. I guess economic development is my biggest interest, but that's where I am.
Wonderful, thank you, Hope. Who else?
Debbie?
Comments. There is someone else on there. Perhaps we'll get to you in a moment. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Odon Gilles from DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. So I'm not alone. We are together with my brother who invited me in this program. His name is, he can introduce himself also.
I am Delphin Kapasa from Congo. Since 2005, we were using Che. Che is almost the same principle with ABCD. And then since 3 years, I was connected with ABCD training program. So I was amazed by this program, this approach based on asset. And so this is what we are using in our community, Kanluka. I am the director of Bon Berger project. Bon Berger means Good Shepherd program. We are working on health and education and prevention of disease.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We'll have to move on just to get through. There's a few other people that have come in. Who else would like to introduce themselves and where they're from? Just briefly, we've got quite a big group joining us now.
And note that Julie, Lisa and Geeta have introduced themselves on the chat. So if there's anyone who hasn't done the chat and hasn't spoken yet, could you please unmute yourself and give a quick intro?
Anyone else like to introduce themselves?
Okay, moving right along.
Okay. Right, we'll get started then.
And what a lovely
and
bunch
we haven't introduced ourselves properly yet. So my name's Maureen Maher. I'm the communications coordinator, facilitator and mentor with Neighbourhood Connect. As I said, based in Wajak Noongar land in Fremantle in Western Australia. I've been part of the Neighbourhood Connect group for about 6 years now. I have my own neighbour group. I work in community development on various projects in my neighbourhood and around Western Australia, and have been part of building the Neighbourhood Connect movement around Australia, and really pleased that we've got so many inspiring and interesting people in the room to talk with us today about how we can move Neighbourhood Connect forward. So we're looking forward to hearing from many of you today.
Thanks, and I'm Irene Opper. I'm the National Manager and also Facilitator and Mentor for Neighbourhood Connect, and also have a background in community development and multicultural work and various other things. And I've also created my own neighbour group here in St Kilda. So both Maureen and my groups have been going for more than 5 years.
Okay, Irene, do you want to tell us a bit more about Neighbourhood Connect?
Okay, so basically we're a very small not-for-profit with charity status, and it's all about creating a movement of neighbourhood groups. So we help people across Australia create neighbourhood groups, because when they do, people are happier, safer and more connected, and people automatically support each other. And we do this because we believe that life is much better when we belong. So in terms of actual tasks, we help people start local groups. We do training and mentoring, and we do various projects and partnerships. We're mostly run by a voluntary team, apart from the project work. So the purpose of today is the workshop is on creating a connected neighbourhoods movement. So our purpose is to share sharing insights for success. So we hope that all of you have dabbled in movements and have learnt some things along the way. And we want to put our heads together and grapple with how could we apply all that great learning and knowledge that people in this workshop have to create a connected neighbourhoods movement. So what we're going to be doing today is covering the context, the neighbourhood and the loss of community. We're going to look at our solution, which is community-led neighbour groups, and get your feedback. It's not the only solution, so we're very interested to see what you think of this approach. We want to share where we're up to in this journey towards a movement, so our progress, and then we want to get to this notion of a movement and share ideas around how do we grow one? How do we create that movement for connected neighbourhoods across Australia? And, you know, it'd be lovely to see others take it up and make it happen in other countries as well.
So before we get started, we thought we might ask this question to get a sense of how you feel about your own neighbourhood. And we wondered, we don't have a poll function, but if we can use the chat function, give us your response to this question. Do you feel a sense of belonging in your neighbourhood? Yes, no, or somewhat? I'd love to hear what you're saying. If you could share it in the chat, that'd be great.
Oh, there's a lot of yeses.
A lot of yeses. And I'd probably hazard a guess that we've probably got quite a lot of community-minded people in this group. So all the people that connect in neighbourhoods, you understand it and you get it. So that's probably helping our poll of being very positive. Great to see.
One person's working with Befriend, which is a wonderful organisation that we know of and have links with in Western Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So I would say this group is not typical. Most people particularly in cities, particularly in Australia, are not very connected to those that live near them. So we're an unusual bunch.
So yeah, so many of us would understand the reasons why we need to connect in neighbourhoods, and many of you may have grown up like I did, growing up in Melbourne, knowing the neighbours, our parents knowing each other from next door, running between houses. Well, we know that doesn't happen anymore. And there's a number of reasons why. And you would be well aware, working in the community development field, about the things that have changed, that have changed our world a little bit from what it once was. More divorce and disrupted families means that people are moving between houses more frequently. A lower birth rate means we have less social connections through schools and playgroups and things like that. We've got greater home mobility, the average person moving house every 6 years. So we really don't get to embed ourselves in a community as easily as we maybe once did. Smaller households with, I think, more than 60% single person households now. So more reason why people are feeling isolated. And increased car ownership means there's less foot traffic. Perhaps in COVID, you've noticed people walking the streets a bit more. So we've seen the impact of having to slow down. And of course, the IT revolution that has seen the average person unlock their smartphone 110 times a day and be on their screen 46 hours a week, and only face-to-face with people 6 hours a week. And of course, that would be even greater now in the last year since we've had COVID. A lot of things have changed to impact on the way we relate to each other in neighbourhoods. And of course, the problem is that many of us are hyper-connected online, but we don't really know people that live just a few doors away from us. And there's this great culture of individualism over community. Many people are experiencing depression and anxiety as a result and feeling isolated. So we know the facts that 1 in 4 of us feel lonely, and I believe that's probably even more of us in this current state of the pandemic when we're all stuck at home. And only 35% people trust their neighbours in one study here in Australia. 1/3 of Australian adults are not involved in any social or community groups. So where people were involved in Scouts and the church and Lions Club and Rotary, those memberships have really diminished over the last number of years. But we know on the other side that people with good community connections have great health, much better health than those that don't, and experience less in depression, anxiety and problems. They're just some of the facts. So our solution at Neighbourhood Connect is community-led neighbour groups across Australia. So people that can build relationships with other, create a sense of community and support one another. And we've seen this in the groups that we've helped get going here in Australia. And we really want to see more of it. And both Irene and I have experienced this in our own neighbourhoods, where we have had our own neighbour groups for over 5 years and have amazing benefits from that, from being involved in them. And the process is very simple. It starts with the person who wants to connect with their neighbours. We give them the tools and the encouragement to invite people to neighbours to connect to a small event. Informal gatherings happen, and as people regularly connect with each other through these informal gatherings, we build relationships, trust, and feel safer and more supported in our neighbourhood. So it's not rocket science, it's stuff that's been going on for centuries, but we're facilitating that with people who may not know how to do it or need some support to do it. And some of the tools that we offer people through our website, this is all free and it's all accessible for you to use anywhere that you are, is some invitation templates to meet the neighbours, to bring people together with editable bits and pieces on there we can that you can share with each other, and a whole range of other resources. So we've got we've got lots of resources for people. We've got lots of support one-to-one, and we really want to get this out there to more people across Australia. And yeah, that's why we're asking you for what your input is. So you can see some of the things that we do, and these are some of the groups that we have going. So just to give it an idea of the types of organisations, I'll tell you a couple of stories about these people. The top right-hand corner, a group that have been gathering in Melbourne. That was a gathering after one of the lockdowns there. I think they're up to number 7 in Victoria now. People just, it's very simple, getting together in a garage, a few people there with masks on, keeping their social distancing, but it's really just that face-to-face connection when people are feeling so stuck at home, particularly now when we're all looking at each other online. And just to see another human smile face-to-face is incredibly uplifting for many people. The picture down the bottom, Samson Friends, that was a group I helped get started in Samson in Western Australia, a woman who was in her mid-60s, who didn't have a mobile phone, who didn't have an email address. We got an event happening in her park where 80 people joined up on the first event. And with that came 6 or 7 people out of the woodwork who said, we love this idea, we're going to keep it going. And now they have a little committee. They meet once a quarter in the park. Connie's now learned how to use a mobile phone. She has an email address, and she's been empowered by and uplifted by the support of the people that have come together around her. And there's obviously other groups there that are meeting in parks and front yards. And I'll let Irene explain her event there in the middle.
Yeah, so my group is the Green Knoll Neighbours group. It's for part of St Kilda, so much smaller than the whole suburb, but several streets. And we have got several connectors, so several leaders, which makes life easy. So people will say, look, I'll organise a full moon party. Someone else will say, I'll scout out some new restaurants that we'll all have a neighbour dinner at. Someone else will lead a walking group. Someone else wanted to have a choir for within the neighbours group. So they went and got the help of the local pastor to use the church, which has got beautiful acoustics. And now there's a choir as part of it as well. Then there's the really informal stuff in my local group, which, as I said, it's been going more than 5 years. So, for example, one of our members lost her job in the beginning of COVID, the first time we had a lockdown, which is well over a year ago now. And all her family's in New Zealand. And so through the neighbours group, she had support. So she started to do handmade masks, and some of us bought them for her. Then there was other types of support. She chose someone from the group to be the one person she's allowed to see. Someone else in the group said, look, when we were open, said that I'm going on a holiday. I know you don't have a lot of money. Come and stay at my place while I'm away and have a holiday in my house. So she moved, a few hundred meters away and got a staycation in a neighbour's house, and all sorts of things like that. And then last time we got together at one of the dinners, like you can see in the middle shot, she said to us, "You guys are my family. I couldn't have got through this whole crisis we've had without all of you." So that's the difference it makes when you've been going quite a while. So we're going for a lot more than just a smile and a wave and a hello. We eventually reach this point where it's quite life-changing. We've also got another group in Mornington Peninsula where it's an area full of retired people. And a couple, they just said, come to our house. So a whole lot of people, they invited 3 streets, and a lot of people came because it was such a personal invitation. And they started to get to know each other. And now over the last 3 or 4 years that they've been going, they had 2 people lose their husbands. And those women have been given such incredible support from that group that they are able to keep going. You know, they said that they had no idea how to socialize on their own. And the neighbors all said, no, come on, come out with us. Come on. And the men said, come and tell me whenever you need something done that your husband used to do. We're here for you. So, and they helped another of their neighbors move into a nursing home. So it's a difficult transition, but they all pitched in. And the men have some sort of, or women, whoever wants to, they have a bit of a game to do with the bins, where they'll all be racing to get all the bins back to everyone's houses and things like that. So they've created a bit of fun. So every group's different. We had another new connector in a project we did in Melbourne, who was a real dynamo, and he invited everyone just to a gathering in the park, got a great turnout. But on top of the usual, he also painted a gnome, which now travels from house to house with a little present and a scroll, a bit of a letter. And he also painted up a cabinet and did a free little library. And he also said, everyone, come and meet outside my front fence every Monday morning and we'll do a walk. So here's someone with tons of energy who's done amazing things. And that group's only been going a few months, but they've got 65 people wanting to be part of that. And it's brilliant outcomes already, that connection, that sharing. People will be sharing what they grow. They'll be giving things away to each other, helping each other. So we have got so many stories of amazing connection. And the groups on the ground, they don't require money. Everyone gives what they can. Our end of year gathering, you know, everyone put up their hand to do different things. Someone says, oh, I can perform and I'll bring my mate. 2 of us will play guitar and sing for you. Everyone just does what they can.
And one of the things we didn't touch on with that, just that discussion then, was the other benefits of the group, which I've seen in my neighbourhood, is the collective action when we have a group that we can call on in the short space of time when there's a crisis. We had a mini tornado come up our street. And because everyone knew each other, we could go out and offer support to people and know people in the street to help them. We also had a large supermarket chain that wanted to set up across the road a 24-hour supermarket, and we could mobilise 60 families to go along to the council meeting and all jointly work together to make sure that didn't happen. And that was a great outcome. So it's not just the social and emotional support that's offering, but it's also that collective action that can happen when, you know, group comes together for a common purpose. So there's, you know, many benefits as we've described. So yeah, so that's some of the groups. Does anyone have any questions regarding either we've just spoken about, or the way that our Neighbourhood Connect works?
There was a question in the chat. Good morning. And the question was quite nice.
Oh, here you go.
It was asking what keeps the groups motivated?
Okay. I would say that what keeps them motivated is that they have such a positive experience. So people are often a little bit tentative before they have their first event. They're worried people might not come, you know, what will it be like? So there's a hesitancy to meet a bunch of strangers that live nearby. Once we help them over that barrier, so once we can encourage them to actually hold their first event, they always say, wow, I met such fantastic people, and people start offering things. So what motivates them is the good experiences that they actually have. And we encourage them to focus on positives. So if people bring up problems with the area, we encourage the leaders, the connectors, to not not let that dominate. So we're guiding them to make it a good experience. And when people have a good experience, they want to have another one. So the other thing that keeps it motivated is that we make it easy behind the scenes. So encourage them to do simple things instead of hard things. So, you know, for example, you know, you could go some amazing elaborate event that required council permissions for things and required money for things. And that's an example of a hard event. And if you did that, you wouldn't do it very often. So we say to people, you don't even need to do that. If you keep it simple, the gathering in the park, the gathering in your home or your front yard, the local cafe or restaurant, the walking together, if you do those simple things regularly, it'll be easy. So that keeps you motivated. You haven't had to do a lot of work. And it will lead to that deeper connection because it's meeting the same people over time that gives you that real sense of community. So we don't suggest people go as big as a whole suburb. We want it to be quite local. We say within a 5-minute walk. So we do like to help people stay motivated also by occasionally sending to all of our connectors around the country new tools and sharing inspiration and stories from other groups. So someone might have tried something new, like come around the fireplace and have mulled wine. So someone might do that and share with us how it was and share some pictures, and we might share that with everyone. So someone else on the other side of the country might say, great, I'm doing that next. So partly we keep the motivation up by sharing good ideas. And we have, we'll come more to some of the resources we share to that end, but that's a great question. And we would love to do more to keep people motivated. So there's certainly been some groups that have stopped and some that have continued for many, many years. So we would love to be able to do more to make sure no one stops because we know that people value being in them. And just to, so if there is any more questions, just pop them in the chat. But I do, before we move on, I do want to share a little bit more about how we do this, the behind the scenes stuff. So as you saw, we do share those tools, but we've got really two ways of helping a group get started. So one is what we're able to do, with our team of volunteers, which I guess I call it our lighter touch. And that's where we give a free webinar, which we tend to offer about every fortnight, where people can meet either Maureen or I and hear about the stories of the groups and be guided through the steps. This is how you do it, step by step. And then we're able to give them a bit more support by email or phone as they get a group going. We have discovered that that's not enough for many people, that they need a little bit more support. So what we've done is we've framed it into a program that we're then able to get some small amounts of project funding for. And we've called that the Let's Get Neighbourly training and mentoring program. And what that does is gives people more. So they get an initial workshop online or in person where we go a little bit deeper into how we do it. We get them to start their planning then and there for their first event and help them work out exactly what they're going to do. We help them with how to get it printed. We step them through the process and again, share these wonderful, inspiring stories. Then we do mentoring, and that's an important part we've learned, that we need to do, some need not a lot, like the person Richard I mentioned before, so motivated, able to just hit the ground running. Many others need a lot more support. They need that practice with us of what they're going to say on the day. They need follow-up to say, have you done your invitation yet? They need the feedback on it. Sometimes people will forget something like the time. So it's those bits of support can make a difference between the event working or not working. So that's our mentoring process. And then we have a second workshop after everyone's done their first event where we say, great, let's share how that was. And let's give you now some tools and tips for how to turn it into a long-term neighbours group. So that's the shape of it as a program, and that's let us get some funding to be able to put that extra time in. So that gives you a bit more of a sense of what we do behind the scenes.
There's a few questions in the chat there, Irene.
Yes.
We might need to.
So just going to those questions. Questions now. So
how did you start?
So how did we start? I'm not sure if you mean us personally. So interestingly for me, I heard about what used to be called the Street by Street project, now Neighbourhood Connect. I actually heard about that from the Centre for Civil Society as a suggestion, as a proposal of what would be great to have within Australia. And I thought, yes, we do need it. And then I spoke to the director and said, look, I can implement that. He said, great, run with it. We put it through the networks. Maureen and others responded, and we had our first project team to make this happen. So I was actually involved in trying to make this happen around the whole country. And I thought, look, I better get my act together and do this locally. So then I started in my apartment block first, and we created a neighbours group just for my 14-storey block. And I did that by just inviting everyone to a morning tea in my apartment. And everyone said, oh, this is wonderful. Someone else said, come to my place next. Someone else said, come to mine. And then we use our shared barbecue area for get-togethers there. And we also started to go to local restaurants. So I then expanded, after that had been going a year or so, I then expanded it out to create a neighbours group for the broader area. So I've answered both sides of that question because I wasn't sure which part you wanted. So in terms of finding my connectors in the group, again, it's just asking people once they come along because they want to be part of a neighbours group, who's willing to help do some of the organising. And that's how you find your team of connectors.
The next question there from Nicola is about inclusiveness. How do you promote inclusiveness where there are members of the neighbourhood who are marginalised? Is there any training for connectors? Well, part of our training is to talk about inclusiveness and how we can reach out to those vulnerable people, because we are well aware that many of the people that come to these these little events are usually the ones that have got a bit more confidence to reach out. So one of the suggestions we have is if you know someone who's in your neighbourhood who may need support, knock on their door and invite them along personally, and offer to then pick them up and bring them along to the event. And some people are doing that, but we do realise that it's one of the challenges of the neighbour groups is how to continue to bring people out who are sitting behind closed doors. It still is a challenge because it's working in some areas, but we're certain that there's people out there that we're not reaching.
There's a few other things that we do. Firstly, some of our groups have been started by people with disabilities, and certainly people with disabilities as well as everyone else from the community have come along. Some of our groups are started by older people, so all sorts of people can actually lead or participate. The other thing is our invitation is designed to show that it is open for everyone. It actually says everyone is welcome, and it's got a bit of a cartoon picture which shows a mix of ages, a mix of skin tones, a mix of genders. So we're kind of showing everyone visually that everyone really is welcome. So we also encourage our connectors to do a door knock, to actually make it a personal invitation. So if you feel a bit marginalised, but someone knocks on your door and says, I'm inviting you to a get together of all of our neighbours, then they know they're really invited. So I think we're doing, a whole range of things that let people know that they are welcome. What I did in my building was I made it clear in the invitation, this is for you whether you own or rent, because I thought there's possible that some renters might think it's not for them. So if you think about what the barriers are and then make it explicit in your invitation. Same with language. If you're in an area where, for example, there's a lot of people from a certain ethnicity, ideally, if you know anyone from that group, ask them to be a connector with you. But even if not, put welcome in their language on your invitation. So these are the sort of tips we give people so that those receiving the invites know that it is an inclusive thing. So to answer Julie's question here, that, yeah, we certainly find the most difficult thing is the starting. It tends to be fairly smooth from there because people worry, will awful people come along? Doesn't tend to happen. The people that want to connect tend to be really lovely people. Is there opposition? We haven't found any. We have not once have we had there be any backlash or resistance to there being a neighbours group. The most we might have is if people do the door knock, which definitely gets a better response. Very occasionally we might get someone who's a bit gruff, you know, but our response to that is to tell them if anyone seems really not interested or a bit rude, it doesn't matter. It just means they don't want to come. And it's not evangelical. Our aim is actually not to get everyone there. Our aim is to have this as a possibility. This is an invitation, an offering, and people will opt in if it appeals to them. So it is important they know it's open to all of them, thus the inclusiveness bits, but we're not trying to convince them to come. So if anyone is gruff when someone does a door knock, we just wish them a good day and move on. So, and we leave them the invitation. They might think about it and come later. So, and also the invitations have that link where people can look up our website and check that this really is a genuine community initiative. It's not a scam of any sort. And also the invitation is designed to be from one neighbour to another. So it's not from us, it's with our backing, but one neighbour to another. And I think that's a good way to go. So it keeps it very grassroots. But Maureen, have you struck any resistance? Have you heard of any?
No, I've never had any resistance,
Okay.
and everyone we've spoken to has been surprised by the lack of resistance. People have usually had a very generally positive experience by reaching out to people. Yeah. But it looks like there's some questions there from other cultures or countries that maybe isn't the case.
Yeah. So Geeta, to answer your question there, when people don't like to connect each other, partly it's accepting those that are really resistant, leave them be. Those that maybe are just a bit hesitant, it might be about building up slowly. So as people come, so I know in my local neighbours group, people hear about it and they ask to join in later. So they mightn't have come initially, but then someone tells them, one of their neighbours mentions, oh, we had a great gathering, and we get requests to people to be included. So it might just be a slower process. The other thing to do is if the divisions are by ethnic group or something like that, try and find someone within that group who likes the idea, who can then encourage their community members to take part. But yeah, I guess if you just expect a slower process where there is resistance.
And also make it something around food. We've found that where you have different groups who have share different food, you know, like in our neighbourhood, we have someone who's a specialty in sausage rolls, someone else who's a specialty in a fisherman, someone else who does amazing curry puffs. So, you know, it's like bring out your favourite dish, whatever, and share your food from your cultural background. That can be often an icebreaker in those areas where you might find some resistance as well. I can see a few people nodding their heads around food. So people get
to Sarah's question, the step-by-step process, go to our website. A lot of it is there, and you're also welcome to come to our free webinar. I don't know what time of the day or night it would be for you, but you're welcome to come. Now, in terms of being funded, we don't think the people who start neighbours groups are part of that neighbourhood, and we don't think those people need to be funded. So this is something you do as a neighbour. We think there needs to be resources for the back end, like what we're doing to find those connectors and skill them up, but we don't think we need the funding, and we don't have the funding for the connectors on the ground. People do this because they want the connections themselves, the sense of community, and they want to help others have it. So we don't see the need for funding associated with that. but if you want to do a role like what we're doing, which is trying to spread this for the benefit of many, then you can look within your own country of how you might fund that. Children and youth. Well, everyone is invited. So as people come along, we often find that, say in an area where there's a lot of kids, the people might say, let's have a regular get together. Could be once a week where we get together in the park and the kids get to play together and kick the ball together. And then anything can come out of that. They might decide to do all sorts of things together. So in terms of being a connector, it's open to any adult age person. We find we have got some young connectors, but they're not the majority. But again, we just make it open to whoever wants to do it.
In terms of attracting young people, sorry, Irene, to interrupt, but I was just thinking in terms of attracting young people, in my neighbourhood, we've brought all the young musicians together, the young local musicians, and we had a laneway event where they played their instruments and entertained us, all aged between sort of 18 and 19, 20. Yeah, and that was a wonderful way to bring out the younger people.
Okay, someone shared about coregift.org. Thank you. Okay, talk to us later if you see a connection with your project. Oh, this is one of the questions we were going to ask later, is about what else do people know about. So we're jumping ahead, but that's lovely. So yes, in Australia, we also have Neighbours Day. Yep, if we have cake, people will come. Yes, that's true. What also, by the way, we don't suggest that anyone tries to cater for everyone because that's a lot of work and it might require funding. Bring a plate is perfect, nice and easy, and everyone contributes. Yep. So the teens, again, look, if they want to come, they come. We you know, we don't have the on the ground staff to do that sort of work. So it may not be the best solution for what's needed for youth. So it may not solve everything, but they're certainly welcome. So look, that's a wonderful range of questions there. We really appreciate it. So let's keep moving with the workshop. So now we want to share with you where we're up to. So now you understand what we're doing and why. So just briefly to tell you the progress we've made so far. So we started in late 2014 and we've been it's been through everyone's voluntary effort, and that makes things slow. But we have done our evaluation and some of this is from what we did in 2019, evaluation. And what we found was the connectors, which are the leaders of these groups, have a much higher sense of community, higher life satisfaction, and more social support than the average. And where we're taking the average from is some very large Australian studies. Also, when we asked our connectors, of those that were lonely before they became a connector and started a group, 80% of them were less lonely. 73% are now more involved in local issues, and 80% of them are helping their neighbours at least monthly. So there's 47 groups now that we've helped start. So when there are other initiatives, and that might be like online groups, Facebook groups, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of them. They're quick and easy. They don't have the depth of connection that this has. So 47 groups are talking about real life neighbours groups that get together regularly and get to really know each other and then get those deeper benefits. We also see this as a movement. So we invite groups that have started some other way to be part of that network. And so we've got 76 groups connected in with us, which includes those that started using our model and others. So this little graphic about with the circles, we asked connectors, how many neighbours did you know beforehand? And the average was 8. And we asked them, how many do you know now? Average of 57. That is massive. That would take decades to happen naturally. And in Australia, in the cities, it would never happen. So in a few months, or, you know, even say 6 months, this evaluation was done with groups that had been going more than 6 months. That is a massive increase in social connections. Some of those people, the connection is so deep that they are friends. So it achieves that massive increase of connections. In terms of how we did the evaluation, we did some of it was interview, and some of it was asking the questions that were framed the same way as these large Australian studies. And that way we could compare. So while our numbers of connectors were small, we could compare it with very valid measures. So that's how we did it. And we are now doing an evaluation that will be independent, and that's done by the Australian National University. So that's really exciting, and they've been generous in working with us and developing that up for us. So we'll actually get the evidence of what difference do these groups make. And we've also found out that most people wouldn't have gone ahead without our support. So it needs some support behind the scenes, but it does not need a worker on the ground. Now, where there is a worker on the ground, and I've been a community development worker, yes, amazing things can happen, and probably a lot more than what does happen in these neighbours groups. So I'm not for a moment suggesting that there's not value in having a worker on the ground. There really is, but this is just about what can be done when we don't have that. So, it's more interest in the evaluation. So the one we're doing now with the ANU is a baseline survey, again, looking at measures around around a sense of community, around safety, around mental illness, so depression, can we find any proof that this lessens mental health issues? And also some of the more quantitative ones, like how many people do you know now, and how many did you know then? Okay, so there's a good question there around legalities and insurance. Okay, so we believe that for the Australian context anyway, people are allowed to get together with whoever they jolly well want to. So if people want to get together with their neighbours in their home, in a park, in a public place like a restaurant, we're free to do that. We don't need insurance to do that. This is normal life, right? So that is our view. As an organisation, we had to get 20 million of insurance to be eligible for some grants. But, that's just the tick the box legalistic mentality we have. But for groups getting together with neighbours on the ground, we don't believe anything is needed. And we've done a workshop with an expert called Our Community on this, and they said there are almost zero instances of people suing one another or even organisations like ours when they're invited to something that is for the common benefit. So the risk of being sued is pretty much not there. And we don't believe you need those. And certainly the groups on the ground don't need committees, formal committees. They don't need votes. They don't need a vote to decide to be a neighbours group. They just need a nod, by the majority that says, yes, we want to keep connecting. That's all it takes to be a neighbours group. Doesn't need incorporation, doesn't need any of that stuff. Now, working with children and police checks, we are helping people meet their neighbours. Now, in our kit, we say no one can guarantee that everyone who lives near you is a good person. You have to use your own judgment. So that's normal life. We don't have those guarantees anywhere we go. Everyone we work with, everyone we meet. So when you're meeting your neighbours, you don't need to ask them for police checks, and we don't ask our connectors to get police checks or anything like that. We ask people to be adults and use their judgment. So we don't necessarily encourage people to share everyone's phone numbers with everyone. People can decide for themselves what level they want to share. Mostly people will share an email. So there is some loss of privacy to have community. And you don't have to address what number in the street you live. You can be just someone from Smith Street. So people need to manage their own comfort levels. So coming back to how does this connect with asset-based community development? And we see it's a perfect fit because it is citizen-led action. So completely. And it's also equity and justice. It's about welcoming everyone. It's about the possibilities and leading by stepping back. So we inspire people and give them the tools, but we don't do it for them. They're doing it and making it happen in their local area. So the ABCD approach completely fits with the values that we've chosen, which are kindness, inclusiveness, sharing, and collaboration. So again, another question here about the risks. The risks is everyone's worry about insurance. There's no actual thing that has ever happened since we've been going in late 2014. There's been no real issue at all, other than people sometimes ring us and say, look, I've got someone who's being a little difficult, and then we talk them through how to manage that. And that's usually things, you know, they might have someone that won't stop talking or who's asking favors too much, and we'll troubleshoot with them about those sort of interpersonal stuff that goes on. At the end of the day, if one person is making people uncomfortable, you have to put the needs of the group first, and you know, if you've tried a few things, you have to let them go from the group, otherwise the whole group will die. But you know, if there are group gatherings, parents are responsible for their children. No one takes that responsibility away from you because it's a neighbours gathering. So we're starting to get some answers to this question. So how important is it that we have widespread neighbour groups? So do you think this is something that is important out of 1 to 5? So let's someone gave it a 10. Yeah, look, I would agree with that comment. The COVID's really shown us, like most of us here knew it was important before. COVID's really brought this to the awareness of absolutely everyone who may not have thought about it before, who now sees how important it is to have some connections locally, because we have not had that option of going across town. So yeah, so heaps of 5. So look, we're all on the same page, and that's wonderful, because we need to move into the second part of the program, which is where all about taking it to a movement.
Yeah, before we get started onto the movement, maybe we can take a photo at this point, Irene,
yes,
if everyone's in agreement.
So if I could get everyone for a moment to share their video, if you're happy to do that, please. And I will just capture us lovely people. So Maureen, you'll have to stop screen sharing.
All right, okay.
Oops. And I just shift command 4. And what a lovely group you are. Oops, just one moment. Sorry. Computer's gone crazy. So look, what I'm pleased with is that it sounds like this is a group that really understands and is on board here. So I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful.
Irene, there's 2 pages there. We've got lots of people, and you might need to move it on. Can you see everyone on the screen?
Okay, yep. Sorry for the break in the flow with this. Okay, thank you. So we're up to our second part, which is the meaty stuff. So now you really understand what we're doing and why, and it sounds like you're all on board that you would also love to see this expanded and happening everywhere. So,
yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about movements, right? We're calling what we want is a Neighbourhood Connect movement, and really what we mean by that is have uptake across Australia, and for it become the norm for people to be wanting to be involved and really get on board. So what is a movement? So with this one description of a movement, A movement is a group of people with shared purpose who create change together. So pretty much that's really what we're about, is we're a shared purpose organisation, and I suppose what we're all looking for is to have that greater sense of connection in our neighbourhoods, so we feel safe and supported around in the places that we live. You can see some of the strategies. The Global Fund for Women include advocacy, media reach, research, protests, and legal action. So there's a whole kind of spectrum of continuum of a movement, and we hope that we can get some input from you today about what we need to do to create a movement. This is a great visual image of one description of a movement is around bystanders coming together to become upstanders, forming groups with grassroots action to propel social change. Those groups connect and come together about empowering each other for a shared purpose, and then become coordinated and really connect strongly so that they can actually move towards creating change. And I suppose the change we want to see, of course, is the reduction in the loneliness and the isolation we're seeing at the moment, the sense of individualism we're seeing in communities, and we want to change that to make it a positive place to be living in our neighbourhoods. So that's sort of some of the descriptions of how social movements are described. What we have at the moment in terms of Neighbourhood Connect is, in terms of our movement, we've got at the moment an organisation that's largely run by volunteers. We're creating positive health and wellbeing and impacts on hundreds of people. We have created a proven approach, and we've got pockets of neighbourhoods across Australia who are benefiting. But what we really want to see is a resourced organisation with national exposure. And we want these positive and wellbeing impacts to going all around Australia, and for it to be a widespread social infrastructure of neighbour groups, resulting in strong and resilient communities. That's the big picture we're aiming for. And Irene's going to talk us through forming the movement.
Yep. So this is just a really simple framework for that. So in forming a movement, it starts with framing something really, well, it doesn't start with that, but it really helps if we can frame it really well. If we can find a way to describe what we're doing that will capture everyone's imagination. And we're going to ask for your help with that in a moment. Then once it's framed well, we need that there's resourcing and mobilizing. So that needs to happen. And then once that is done well and you have some scale, then you need to have attention to sustaining and mainstreaming it. So that's just a simple 3-part process around around a movement. So if we think about some movements here and think about the framing, like how it's been described. So these are ones that all, to me, are strong. So School Strike for Climate Action, clear, strong, and people were really able to get behind that. Buy Nothing, with some really good key words there. Give, share, build community. So it's nice and clear. It's, it spells out and people can easily see if they relate to that. Marriage equality is great, because who can argue against equality? Even very conservative people, are not against equality. So that was in a general term. So they didn't use in that framing, they didn't have gay or anything that might, have people not like the term. They've gone for something that the issue is marriage, and what we want is equality. And even in the messaging as well, love is a human right, a nice positive message. So that's well framed. And Black Lives Matter, that's the clearest. In 3 words, they have summed up exactly what that movement is about. And people can really easily get behind that. They can understand it, and if it relates to their values, get behind it. So these are examples of movements that have framed themselves really well. So if we come to the next slide, this is what we do. And I guess this is where we're wanting to tap into the wealth of experience around the room and give any feedback. You might think of things later. Feel free to contact us later. But currently we're using that image of the people, and we're using our name of Neighbourhood Connect, which we think is clear. I don't know if it's the most exciting, but Neighbourhood Connect, and then a tagline of happier together. We're also describing ourselves as a national community organisation which helps people across Australia create neighbourhood groups to encourage happier, safer and more connected communities. And we say because life is better when we belong. And we've also included there for you to see how we describe the role of connector, because that's quite critical for our growth, is to be reaching those people. So I guess I just look at any thoughts around having seen those other movements and how they captured what they were about, and now that you understand what we're trying to do, is there anything that pops into your head as potential ways of framing things? Do you think we're framing it in a good way at the moment, or is there something stronger you can think of? And as I said, if you think of something tomorrow, by all means, get in touch then. We also do share stories and positive images. So that's part of how we're putting it out there. But ideally, you want something that really captures everyone's imagination. So, okay, no thoughts coming in on the chat yet. So that might be something that we just leave you to think about. And, it might come to you overnight. Who knows, as you sleep. But that's that part of the picture, is we need to frame this as well as we can.
The next stage in that model was about resourcing. And of course, resourcing, we did talk about the fact that neighbour groups don't need money to keep going, but organisations do. And in terms of resourcing, we need more resources at Neighbourhood Connect. We've started from a very grassroots position. We've in the last 12 months, we've had less than $60,000 to run our organisation on, and that's basically come from grants through local governments and other government departments that have given us small grants to be able to run our training and mentoring program. But we need a whole lot more, as you can imagine. So it's very light touch at the moment. So we're always looking for suggestions for who we can partner with, ideas for where we might seek funding. We don't have DGR status at the moment, and we're still trying for that. So that's made it difficult to get philanthropic funding, but we really do need to be finding the funds to be able to scale this up as we really want to. So if anyone's got any suggestions, happy for you to share them in the chat or email us later if you've got some thoughts on that.
So these are all of the elements that lead to a successful movement. So I hope you'll be able to think of this in your own situations as well. So some attention to framing, some attention to resourcing. So these are common things that you will all need to think about in whatever you're working on. So a bit of feedback here. Someone likes the happier together. Okay. So emphasising happier together more than Neighbourhood Connect.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So keep the ideas flowing there. So again, so any organisations you think we should partner with that might help around the resourcing, anything like that, either now or whenever you think of it, do let us know. Because basically we can't create a large scale movement on 60 grand a year. Because all that does is lets us do some of that more intensive workshops and mentoring in those areas where we get that funds from. That's not, there's a lot more to creating a movement. So, and, we do have volunteers, but that's a purely volunteer model is not up to the task of creating a movement. So yes, next door, thanks. And neighbourhood houses. So keep those ideas flowing. That's wonderful.
Thank you. So we're talking, the next stage of that model was around mobilising a group to get them all working together. And of course, that's an important part of creating a movement, is how do we mobilise people to get going. We're going to just show a little video, and then we're going to put you into breakout rooms to share a question. So we'll just share that video first. You may have seen this one before, but it just gives you a little bit of a one way of looking at starting a movement.
I'm just working out how to share screen. So while I do that, let me say that Befriend is a wonderful organisation who've already given us, in principle, agreement to auspice us when we find a suitable project that does need DGR. So that's an example of how we can grow through partnering, through working with others. So here is our
If you've
video.
learned a
I
lot
hope you can
about
all see
leadership
it.
and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
We hope you enjoyed that.
Right, we're going to move into a breakout rooms now. And the question that we want to ask is, how do we attract and find more people to start neighbour groups or join the team behind the scenes? We'd like you to share your suggestions in the breakout room and have one person report back to the larger group. We're going to have 6 or 7 minutes in the breakout room, and we'd like you to share your insights in how do we get people along, how do we get people joining up to this concept in their neighbourhoods. And we hope that you'll be able to report back. And for those of you in the room, just give everyone a chance to talk and make sure you listen in to everyone's suggestions. I think
keep it on track.
Irene, you sorting out the breakout rooms?
No, you are.
Okay, where are we? Okay.
So as she does that,
right, okay. everyone's
so
going to go.
you've all got
away.
facilitation skills, so just make sure that people stay to the topic and not talk about other stuff. So we really want some good ideas on how, we've got a great thing, how do we scale it up? And scaling it up involves finding more and more people to make it happen. And that's both the behind the scenes stuff that we do, and it's more and more groups on the ground. So just do a big dump of lots of ideas of, how to make that happen. And then someone from each group will share back, and hopefully we'll all hear something we haven't before. After that, I'll be sharing another model around movements, so that there's still more food for thought coming.
Yeah, thanks. All the rooms are open now. You'll be assigned.
Okay, that was a wonderful range of questions there. It was great to see the level of interest in the room. And I think what's interesting is that where we expect the problems to be, often it's not, it's not there. The biggest problem we've found is people's hesitancy to start. And I think it's because at the moment they're breaking a norm. Our norm is that we don't talk. We might talk to our immediate neighbours. We don't go and start a conversation with the person in the next street. It's not done. So at the moment, we're breaking a norm when we go and knock on the door and give them an invitation. And for those not confident to do that, yet they can leave it in letterboxes. But even inviting them to come along and meet the people that live near them, it's still breaking a norm. So for that initial person, like that dancer, it's a bit tricky. It's a real step. So that's the main barrier we're getting. And what we hope is that as more and more people do it, it'll be so well known that we're not breaking a norm anymore. That's what we're aiming for, where the norm is, oh, everyone knows you can have a neighbours group. It's just a matter of who's going to be first to start it. So that's I think that's what making the movement is, where we actually change that norm. But that it becomes that, everyone can connect in with their neighbours. Everyone knows how, and everyone's doing it.
Is everyone in their breakout rooms? No,
I don't think so. Some still here.
Some of you are still there.
So we need to press move to. Oh.
Yeah. I put them in rooms. Sorry, it didn't assign automatically. So,
sorry, so we're just working this out.
There's just a couple of people left.
So 2 people left. Not join.
And Gita.
Oh, I think they have to press a button to accept to go to that room. Gita and Odon, if you're there, there might be something that says go to room, and then you have to press yes, and it'll take you to that room. Okay. Sorry, Maureen, what happened is that I realised it needed to be set up while I was showing my screen of the video. So I couldn't fiddle while I had the video on.
Okay, no,
so
that's all right.
I to do it anyway.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see that. And I can't assign you by the looks of it. So we've got 218.
Okay.
218. Yeah.
All right. They all think it's important. So that's good.
I think so far so good, but I'm worried about the time. Like we've only really got 15 minutes left.
Okay. Have we gone the whole 2 hours? Have we? Oh my God.
We
don't have to finish then.
We made it an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, we don't have to finish then.
No, but I'll be expecting it to finish then. So
depends if they've looked at the program, which says 2 hours. So I'm not too fussed about that.
But I think we might just need to say to them,
if they have to go, they have to go. But remember, most people are looking at the program, which says it's 2 hours. So let's not introduce all of that. You know what I mean? There's no gain for bringing that to everyone's attention.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Nice to see you all back again. Nice to see you all back again.
Okay.
Okay. Who would like to start some sharing about what happened in your little breakout room in that question? How do we expand our neighbour groups across Australia? What do we need to do that? Anyone have any great ideas they want to share? Speaking to us about it?
I'll just pick up. We had a conversation about culture. Different places have different cultures. And the size of the suburbs or the communities, if it's a city, it is a different community. So, for instance, you know, in a suburban to outer suburban, rural communities tend to deal with themselves, I have to say. Rural communities are very connected. That's a really interesting point for me, that it's just something that happens in rural communities, and it's very emergent. And we talked about looking back at, Chris brought up about looking at the 7 functions that John talked about. You know, maybe you could look at some of those things and what motivates people to want to be connected and stuff as well.
The 7 functions, what were you referring to there, Fiona?
Chris, do you want to explain a bit deeper?
Yeah, right. Okay, so in the initial talk and in that presentation about the essentials of ABCD that John Knight presented to us, one essential is to define 7 key functions that make up a healthy neighbourhood. These were things like the health of people, children and how they're looked after, food resources, what you grow in your backyard and how you connect with other people and what they grow and how you barter those. Security, these are some of them I can remember off the top of my head, but each of these are a reason for you to say, let's get together, neighbours together, and take one of these possibilities and grow your neighbourhood network around that. Because my question was, what I like about your program, what your presentation is, it's proximate. It's the proximate neighbourhood that we're counting. I've got plenty of networks spreading right across that where I live, across the state, across the nation, and across the world. But what I'd really care for and what I really like about you is, who are my proximate neighbours, and how can I feel that they are part of my community? Whatever their beliefs are, whatever their social values are, how can I connect with them? And I'm thinking, my problem is I don't know really what topic to ask them to come together for, except, come and have a drink, or let's get to know each other or something.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I just comment on that. That for some people, they're really comfortable coming together to meet one another, to connect, to get to know their neighbours. That's enough. Whereas for others, they say, but I'd like there to be a topic, a reason that we're coming together. And our model, I guess, is more on the side of, let's just come together because we want to know each other, and then let the topics come later. So once people have self-identified as someone that wants to connect, then they might find, there's a heap of us interested in food swapping or in, whatever it might be. So we tend to encourage our connectors not to start with a topic, but to start with that really open invitation to everyone that lives nearby, come together because we have this community in common, or this community we could create in common. And then anything else comes underneath that. So someone might say, look, I'm a yoga teacher. I can start by offering a yoga lesson. And we'd still say, that's a wonderful offering, but maybe make that a second thing. So because otherwise they won't get those people that want to connect but don't like yoga. or can't do yoga, someone who might be elderly. So we're really saying go for all of those that want to connect, and then just social gatherings are valuable in themselves, but there certainly can be topics that come underneath that. Or there can be things related to health, like a walking group that comes underneath that.
So thank you, sharing, Fiona. Yeah.
No, I just want to add to that though as well, because I'm an extrovert, so I'll find people. If they're there, I'll find them. If you're under a rock, I'm going to find you. And I love connecting with people, but my partner doesn't. My husband doesn't. So for him to have to go to something, we don't often go to things together. I can quite often just go to something, but he has to have an interest to want to go there. So there's got to be that, for him to want to go, even if I said, come on, you're coming with me, I don't want to be on my own, he'd really have to have a need to get there or a purpose to be there. So there is a fine line as well.
Yeah. And that's fine. So in practice, what would happen is that, Fiona, you'd probably come to the initial gathering if someone organised one, and your husband would only come on the times when there was something of interest, and that's fine. Yep. Yeah. So that's from one breakout group. Could we have someone from one of the others now?
I think Nicola, do you have something to share? Did I see you put your hand up before? Yeah. If you could unmute.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm just very enthusiastic about this gift work at the moment. I just did some training in it recently, and I've been listening to lots of podcasts, interviews with people who've started neighbourhood groups where they've gone around and they've done gift interviews, and they've created a neighbourhood map and then connected people up who've got common gifts or passions or skills. And so that would perhaps speak to what Fiona's talking about with the introverts, because I'm an introvert as well. So I will not just go along to any social gathering. I'll usually go because there's something that I'm interested in that will engage me. And wanting to have that kind of deeper level of conversation, like small chat, just like it actually, like I don't deal with it very well. But if there's an opportunity to have a deeper conversation, then that will really draw me. So that's a way of reaching the introverts. And what else do we talk?
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I've forgotten. I can't see the person I was talking to, and I've forgotten her name, from the UK, but she was talking about the time bank. But maybe she'd like to say if there's anything. Oh, that's right. We talked about people being forced into roles they don't want to do, and how, when you're doing something that is related to your gift, it's like your passion naturally flows into that and your energy flows into that. So it's about matching people up with their natural inclinations, because then it's a joy to do it. Whereas if you're doing something just because you feel like you should, it's going to become burdensome and it's more likely to peter out.
Great suggestions, Nicola. I think we'll have to have a cup of tea together in Perth and have a bit more of a chat.
Marilyn, did you have some feedback from your group?
Yeah, before that though, I've had an interesting couple of conversations in community around these community connector type roles and neighbourhood groups, and I've had a couple of people talk about not identifying their local community as their primary community, so they're involved in other things, and there's that sense of lockdown is fantastic because everybody comes home, and then when it opens up again, people are back to travelling across the city to work, or all of their activities are in different places. So the sense of your neighbourhood and community, I think, is quite fluid. In our group, we were talking about how you scale it up, or ideas for scaling up the movement. And it was around taking that ripple effect and how you make a bigger splash so that there's bigger ripples. And that was about looking at connecting to other things that are happening. So whether there are like national programs or national things that are advertised, like mental health awareness and things like that, that all of this helps with, so that it becomes something that is advertised through other campaigns, not just creating your own campaign, and using events and funding. And I hope, Anne-Marie, I covered that enough. Awesome.
Thanks, Marilyn. Yeah.
Does anyone have any more ideas to throw in the mix? I think Conrad might want to say something when the pesky mute works. Yep, that's it.
My fingers. Thanks for saying it. Yeah, a very interesting conversation. I was with Fiona and Chris. Just two things that came to mind. I mean, human beings are essentially interest driven, so it's about, you know, what makes people tick. I like the idea of just bringing people together with no particular purpose, because the purpose will, you know, others might not like jogging, you know. So it's about finding the different interests and how do we connect the dots, the different small activities, because in any community, even in your most rat-raced community where people stay go to work the whole day, you know, there's always something that drives them. Just on the question of scalability, when we talk about scale, we always think about big, but human beings actually tend to operate in small operating teams. So I would think it's more about replication. So even if it's like an activity of 5 that gets replicated, but of course those connectors are always very, very interesting. And what I found with my own personal experience, I tend to connect more with connectors and work with them to connect to other people. So it's different. And then of course, like what Chris was mentioning, so what's the purpose? You know, where does issues of purpose or deliberation comes in, deliberateness comes in? If you want to say, let's create a stronger gel in the community, but below that it's already happening. It's for your extroverts like Fiona and them that will connect all these other people, and they'll find me in my garden. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, as you probably know, that there's really 2 forms of community: communities of interest and geographic communities. They're both great, you know, and we all need both. But what's most missing is the geographic community, and we believe it's best done at that micro level. So I guess that's the piece we're trying to do. Most of us have our communities of interest, and we're not suggesting this replaces it in any way, but they're important. We should keep them. It's wonderful that we can connect with people across the globe on ABCD or on whatever else. But the value in this local connection is great. So in terms of that interest, so we're all interest driven, but some of us are really connection driven as well. And so for those that, and we're all probably both, but for many who are really connection driven, it actually doesn't worry them that there isn't a topic. So we've had that feedback a lot. Those that are really connection driven just want to meet the people that live near them and are happy to see what unfolds. So, and there is a bit of a gender difference. We more commonly hear from men that they want a topic. So that's an interesting thing we've found over the years. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with wanting a topic. We're just a bit cautious about that being the first event because of all the people you'd lose who don't like that topic. Yep. So any other ideas? Okay. So I'll just try and give a bit of a summary of what I think we've mostly shared today. And that's firstly, we've shared an approach of micro communities in local neighbourhoods and the behind the scenes work that we do that prompts that to happen. There's been real general agreement that it is important, that it is a good solution to the insufficient connections that many of us have at that local level, and that's good for us. The ideas that have arisen is really about harnessing people's interests, harnessing their gifts, and working with people's passion. And that, touches on, how do you keep people motivated and all of that. It comes back to what you're now saying, tap into the passions and the gifts, and that will automatically keep people motivating. That there is a real need to look for like-minded organisations as a way to leverage and partner. So I think that's absolutely true. And interesting point about scale, that yes, small is very good, and yet we want that small to be everywhere. So we want large reach. We want this to be available for so many people, but what we want to be available should stay small. So we don't want each group to become for the whole suburb and then the whole part of the city and then the whole city, because you're not going to meet the same people over and over to get that sense of community. So we don't want to lose that small, but we all agree that there's a need for that small to be replicated en masse. So we've put our heads together, and I really appreciate all of the ideas that you've all raised. And what I'm thinking is that this will percolate. And as it percolates over the next week or so, ideas might pop into your head. So feel free to please email us. If you want to share the screen for a moment, Maureen, we've got a way of contacting us here. So what we didn't get time to share was all of the resources available on our website. So please do tap into that. And that's our contact details. So we would love to hear your ideas, especially if you have got ways to partner with us, or ideas for how we can really scale up. So could I get a bit of a show of hands of anyone who thinks that they would, now that they've heard about this, that they would be a connector and create a local neighbours group where they live? Is there any? Yeah, so some of you will do that. So that's wonderful. So do come to our webinar, and we can help you with that process. Can I have a show of hands of who'd like to be part of this, like what Maureen and I do behind the scenes? Who would like to be part of the team that finds the partners, that improves how we do our things? Is there anyone in that boat? Nope. If you decide later, get in touch. So what we'd like to do as an ending is just have some people share or in the chat. So some can do it verbally and some can do it in the chat. What are you taking away from the session that you'll share with others? So what's really, what struck a chord with you that you think is important enough that you will talk about and share with others? So if people want to put that in the chat, but if someone wants to unmute and speak while others write, that would be great. Angela?
Yeah, I think for me, we've been in lockdown for months. So I think for me, just a reminder of geographical community and how important that is, because it is kind of easy to forget when you're living in this little bubble. So I think that just really starting to think about that again, particularly when we might come out of lockdown sometime soon, how to re-engage people and actually build a stronger community coming out of this.
And Angela, just for your information, we do, and one of our invitations on our website is to run a Zoom happy hour. So if you want to get started while you're still in lockdown, there are ways you can do that. And yeah, you can find out on our website, or give us the contact with us, or come along to one of our webinars and we can talk you through that.
Thanks, Maureen.
Could someone else share while others are writing? Questions, what's the big take home for you?
I think just courage and inspiration to go out there and do it. And it's great. I think, I don't know that I would have done it by myself because of being a bit introverted, but knowing that you have all of that support there, and also that I don't have to be the person that goes on carrying it because I'm already really busy but I feel like I'm really good at starting things. So yeah,
And
I'm
that's
happy
possible.
to be dancing and find some other people to join in and keep the dance going.
That's a very important role.
We've learned that it's really important that it doesn't stay on one person's plate, because then it's not fun and it's not sustainable. So we really encourage people to find that team of connectors, and then it is quite feasible for the initiator to step back and just be a participant. That's what I've done with my local group. We've got a team of 6 connectors, and I've said to them, look, I need to be freed up for the national level. Can you guys just do everything? And they've said, yeah, we can, we'll do that. And so it's wonderful. And so I just sort of keep an eye, and, you know, occasionally if it needs a prompt, just to say, hey, has anyone thought about the end of year get together? That's all I do now. And everything just happens through others. So it's perfectly fine as busy people to be that initiator, find the connectors, and then just enjoy it. Step back. It doesn't take any more of your time from that point. Okay, well, I would like to thank everyone for your interest, for your ideas, for your passion, and really appreciate it. And I'm glad to be amongst a group that all appreciates asset-based community development. Conrad?
Yeah, I was looking for my mute. I mean, for me, for one big takeaway is you don't always have to have a purpose. Just be there. Just be there, and find the purpose will come afterwards. Because yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The purpose can be to enjoy the fireplace and the mulled wine.
Even better, yeah.
And meet some lovely people.
Yeah, even better. Thanks a million.
Okay. If anyone wants to stay
you.
for some informal chat now, you're welcome. So Maureen and I will stay on for a little bit. But for everyone else, thanks for your participation and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Everyone. Yeah, thanks for your insights. And yeah, lovely to meet you all.